So, interesting thought. You'd think superheroes would be pretty competent in things like the entertainment business, given their abilities and skills and etc. Although Grayson, Dick, he's just not doing that well. I guess that's one of the things that you have to live with not being a super, right? Excuse me. You have regular illnesses to have to cope with, right? Trying to operate at not your best. Yeah, that admittedly was amusing to me. Although, quick thought, I do like the fact that Clancy Brown was Faraday. Wish he had a slightly larger role, but whatever. Meanwhile, Connor is using a patch, one of the shields, on a very low tier operation. Like they're fighting a guy who probably is a trapeze artist, so he's a normal human being, and he decides to use his "I want to unlock all of my full Superman level powers" to take on a guy, which he still fails at, by the way. Um, yeah, so he's addicted. Although, in the interests of fairness, it would be really easy to grow addicted to something that unlocks that kind of power. I mean, imagine for a moment, if you will, that you had something that you could do to just kind of like take this carrot of power and go, and in so doing, you're suddenly at Superman levels of power. Just picture that for a second. Yeah, that'd probably get pretty addicting. Especially since you're probably going to want to hunt down the one person who can make those for you, Luther in this case, and demand more of them later on, which is what I'm predicting is going to happen. Notice this is the second and third time that we show that he tends to lose his head as a consequence of having the patch on. Although the third time might have been deliberate, like planned for, basically. But still. Anyways. So how does how do they get how does he get the drop on them when they all have him surrounded and they have their arrows pointed and everything, and he still managed to get the drop on them? Actually kind of irritated me a little bit. Anyways. So I like that there's this bit where Artemis is the one who has to point out to Robin that taking care of Robin is more important than going after the bad guy. Just a nice little touch there. Artemis is also the one who talks to Red. So there's this bit where Grayson, obviously Nightwing, is very protective of Haley. Why wouldn't he be? This is the circus he used to perform at. Logical. And he talks to Wally. Wally only has the one scene in this episode, but it's a really good one. I haven't really commented on this before, but I really like how both Wally and Robin just sort of naturally gel. They have good chemistry, both the actors do. And both of them, their friendship feels very believable to me. It's the kind of friendship you just look at and like, yeah, they've been friends a while. You can just tell. Yep. It's just a nice little thing. I wanted to comment on that. So, I want to share a funny story. I'm in my notes. I'm about halfway through my notes at this point. I write down, oh, it's Ray, the big dude. He's nice. Everyone other than Haley is implicated. Haley himself is innocent or coerced. And as I'm typing that, the sentence is actually incomplete, because as I'm typing it, the scene happens where they reveal that it's Ray. And I'm like, well, I was trying to get that down before they actually showed that it was him. Because Ray is, surprise, Parasite, as played by Alec Baldwin. He does a good job of the role, as he always does. So he steals the abilities so he can shapeshift. So yeah, all of that just kind of nicely makes sense. You can also see how he would be able to do a lot under these circumstances. Although, I'm curious why they wanted to make this whole black hole gun thing. And once again, where are the big-name Justice League members? Remember, this is not an official mission. Anyways. So then the addiction actually starts to cause an issue. Because he took the addiction patch for basically no reason. Remember, at this point, he doesn't even know the level of threat of what he's facing. And then he goes up against Parasite, who takes all those powers from him, because that's how the rules, logic of superhero powers work. And so now Parasite has full Soup's powers. Yay. He also then decides to go after a guy whose great power is draining by touch in a one-on-one fight. Right. Now, again, in fairness, it's possible that last attack was actually just a way to try and, make it so that they could distract him long enough to sabotage this and set off the fire. Because apparently inherent weaknesses, even though I don't even want to get into how much that doesn't make sense. Sure. Whatever. You beat them at their game. You played a, I don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh. I don't remember MTG names off the top of my head. You played something and I played a counterspell. We're good. I get you. And of course, somehow they have a frickin' collar for the parasite, which I'm not even going to begin to go into how much that doesn't make sense. But I do like how they outsmarted the enemy. That is a very Nightwing thing to do. Or Robin thing to do. Then there's this interesting scene. Now, I've talked about this concept many times, actually, and it can be implemented well and poorly. This is actually a good implementation, but it's the same concept. It's when a character, in character, says something as if it is true, and it is being done with specific intent to convince the audience that that fact is true. Now, in a bad movie or a bad show, they'll be saying something ridiculous just to convince the audience it's true, so they don't have to figure things out or logic their way through it, or things don't make sense, or lazy writing, basically. In this case, they are doing this to convince us that it really was all the smokescreen and there is no mole. Now, I'm going to laugh if I'm wrong on this, but for me, that 100% convinced me that yes, there is a mole. And I'm standing by my opinion that it's Red Arrow. So, that should be fun. Either way, we're getting close to the end of Season 1 now, so it'll be curious to see if they start doing a wind-up thing. We're only a couple episodes out, I think. So we'll see how things roll forward next time.